Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking, and welcome to the Hat Trick. Make sure to do all that YouTube stuff like liking the video, subscribing, and ringing the bell. Let's not waste any more time and give it everything we've got. This is my review of Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Released pretty much worldwide on November 21st, 2014, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, shortened to ORAS by the Pokemon community, which is one letter away from a certain thing. And actually, now that I think about it, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is abbreviated to BDSP, which is one letter away from... Oh god, Game Freak, you nasty! Anyway, they were the first remake since the series went 3D. Granted, that had only happened in the previous year, but it was still a big deal. The original games, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, hold a special place in the hearts of many Pokemon fans, and for a very good reason. Those games, released for the Game Boy Advance in 2003 and 2005 respectively, introduced a wealth of new features in Pokemon, and really set the format that future games would follow almost too closely. New core gameplay mechanics like Natures, a randomized personality trait that can affect stats, Abilities, a skill that can do numerous different things depending on what it is, and Double Battles, a 2-on-2 Pokemon battle, were introduced. Every corner was popping with color. You were finally allowed to choose the gender of the protagonist, and this was the first time that the two versions had drastic differences. Before Ruby and Sapphire, the version differences between the two games really boiled down to available Pokemon. The box art legendary was only obtainable in its game, along with a handful of other chosen Pokemon. That's still a staple of Pokemon games today, but Ruby and Sapphire took it farther. Each game has their own evil team, more on them later, and a unique story. Pokemon Emerald would mesh the two stories into a unique different story, so in that aspect, Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are more like remakes of Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, as it mixes elements from all three of those games. One more fun fact about the originals before we move on, Generation 3 is the only Pokemon generation where the games constantly ran at 60 frames per second. Every generation before and after it ran at 30 frames per second, with only one temporary exception that I'll mention in another video. But enough about the originals, it's time to jump 11 years into the future and talk about Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. And this time, I actually played both of them. The story begins with the protagonist, either Brendan or May, depending on your choice, arriving at their new house in the Hoenn Region in the back of the moving truck. Well, it's not like Pokemon parents have a history of being good parents. The Hoenn Region is another reason why Generation 3 is remembered so fondly. While Kanto and Johto are rather generic regions just used so the games had a setting, Hoenn was wildly different, with all of its unique landmarks and locations, all of which are memorable in some regard. You've got a town built right on an active volcano, a town comprised entirely of tree houses, a town built on a series of logs floating in the ocean, and a town built within the center of an impact crater in the ocean. And that's not even all of them. Anyway, it's not long after arriving that you find Professor Birch being harassed by a tiny dog and choose one of 3 Pokemon to help him out. Your choices this time around are the Fire-type Torchic, the Water-type Mudkip, and the Grass-type Treecko. This is where the first big change from the originals comes into play. Well, not at this exact moment, but it does involve the starters. All of the starters and their evolutionary lines are the same, but now they can Mega Evolve! Side note, Mega Evolution was a mechanic introduced in Pokemon X and Y. It was a temporary evolution that could be activated during battle that boosted the Pokemon's stats and could give the Pokemon a new ability or type. After you save Professor Birch, he entrusts you with the Pokemon you chose, and you set off to collect all 8 gym badges, because what else would you do? But before you can do that, you have your first run-in with the evil teams of Generation 3, Team Magma and Team Aqua. Team Magma wants to end the coexistence between people and Pokemon by expanding Earth's landmass with help from the legendary continent expander Groudon, while Team Aqua also wants to end the coexistence between people and Pokemon, but by getting the legendary ocean expander to destroy all land so only Pokemon can survive. In case it isn't obvious, Team Magma was originally exclusive to Ruby version, while Team Aqua was originally exclusive to Sapphire version. They both appeared in Emerald version. But who are the people behind these misguided organizations? Team Aqua, the woman who managed to change her hair and skin color between games, Shelly. From buff redneck to anime Bobby Lashley, Matt. And the leader wearing a strange diving suit onesie thing, Archie. And Team Magma. No wonder this guy turned evil. His parents named him Tabitha. The very determined and occasionally robotic but still marry me, Courtney. And my personal favorite team leader with glasses I desperately wish I had, Maxie. From this moment on, you'll go back and forth between completing the gym challenge and trying to save the world from 2 terrorist organizations looking to destroy it in some way. Hard to tell which is more important, really. Yeah, the world is cool and all, but look at how shiny these badges are! Or even better, forget both of those things and just cosplay with your Pokémon all day! Yeah, Pokémon contests were introduced in Generation 3, and they take many different forms in the future. They aren't ever really important, so I won't go into detail on them, but they deserve to mention. Also, I may or may not have actually spent hours doing Pokémon contests. But when you're not getting distracted by optional side activities, the main story is actually very fun. Exploring Hoenn is always fun to do, especially when you get access to the Aeon Flute. The Aeon Flute summons Latios if you're playing Omega Ruby, and Latios if you're playing Alpha Sapphire, and allows you to soar above the region and land in any area you've visited before. It also allows you to access many islands and mirage spots home to a plethora of legendary Pokémon. But before you can do that, you've got gym leaders to fight, and I think it's about time we met them. The rock-loving honor student, Roxanne! Get it? Roxanne? Yeah, screw it. A big wave in fighting and somehow not a water-type gym leader, Brawly! The cheerfully electrifying partner of Sherlock Holmes, Watson! One with a fiery passion that burns, because what else would fire do? Flannery! A man in pursuit of power, Daddy Norman! No, really, he's their protagonist's father. The bird user taking flight into the world, Winona! The mystic combination where I have no idea who is who, Tate and Liza! Artist, lover of water, and fashion statement maker, Wallace! The Dark-type Elite Four member with fire hair for some reason, Sydney! The Ghost-type Elite Four member, probably from Alola, Phoebe! The Ice-type Elite Four member with parents as loving as Bugsies, Glacia!
Whoopsie!
And the Steel Master with the wrong last name, Steven Stone! Before you fight Wallace, you witness the awakening of either Groudon or Kyogre in the beginning of their primal reversion. In Omega Ruby, Maxie's plan of awakening Groudon succeeds and Archie fails. In Alpha Sapphire, it's the other way around with Archie's plan to awaken Kyogre. It's up to you, an actual child, don't forget, to venture forth and prevent the ancient legendary from destroying the world in their uncontrollable primal form. Primal Reversion is a feature exclusive to Groudon and Kyogre and is essentially their Mega Evolution. And while it is weird that an actual child is being entrusted to do this, it is still awesome. So what teams did I assemble to defeat the same gym league, but save the world from same but different primal threats? In Omega Ruby, my team was Swampert, an event-exclusive shiny Metagross, Shiftry, Slacking, Sylveon, and Altaria. In Alpha Sapphire, my team was Blaziken, Ludicolo, Gardevoir, Absol, Aggron, and Sableye. I remember really liking these teams as I put them together and exploring the post-game with them, and are probably my favorite teams that I've ever put together. Speaking of post-game, after the main story is completed, you unlock what is probably my favorite Pokemon post-game content, the Delta episode. The Delta episode centers on quite a few things. Courtney, she's a little hottie pants to me, yeah. Or Matt, depending on the version, determined to carry out their boss's plan after they had a change of heart, a meteor about to strike Earth, and a new character Zinnia's efforts to awaken the legendary Rayquaza. I know the correct pronunciation is Rayquaza, like a quasar, but I refuse to pronounce it like that. Rayquaza is the ancient legendary dragon responsible for originally quelling the conflicts between Groudon and Kyogre, and is now capable of Mega Evolution. The Delta episode ends with you and a newly captured Mega Rayquaza fighting against the being at the center of the meteor, and my favorite legendary ever, Deoxys. Oh, and did I mention this happens in space? I know some people label Deoxys as a mythical Pokemon, but it's been classified as both, so I'm going with legendary. Speaking of legendaries, I mentioned earlier that the Aeon Flute allows you to access certain islands and mirage spots to capture legendary and mythical Pokemon, and that's like the 50th thing I like about these games. In these games, you can catch Ho-Oh, Lugia, Heatran, Latias, Latios, the Lake Guardians, Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf, Palkia, Dialga, Giratina. The Swords of Justice, Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion, Reshiram, Zekrom, Kyurem, the legendary dogs Entei, Raikou, and Suicune, the worst legendary trio Tornadus, Thundurus, and Landorus, Cresselia, my favorite legendary trio not comprised entirely of box art legendaries, aka the legendary titans Regirock, Registeel, and Regice, and the legendary titan master with one of the worst abilities ever, Regigigas. There were also plenty of legendaries and mythical Pokemon that were event exclusive, like Diancie, Celebi, star of the worst Pokemon movie I've ever seen, Jirachi, Manaphy, Shaman, my favorite mythical Pokemon Victini, Keldeo, and Meloetta. I will eventually go more in depth on some of these legendaries like the Creation Trio, the Swords of Justice, and the Tau Trio, but most of the legendaries don't have much, if at all, story presence, so there's not much to them aside from a basic description. But if I described the lore behind all of them, this video would be like an hour long, and I'm not game theory. Although, it might seem like that in a few months. Overall, Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are by far my favorite Pokemon remakes, and my second favorite Pokemon games overall. The story is more involved than previous generations, and while it would get better in Gens 4 and 5 in some regard, I love Team Magma, Team Aqua, and Rayquaza. The Hoenn region is always fun to explore, and I still remember how much fun I had the first time I played through them. My only complaints are the HM usage, having to switch between the Mach Bike and the Acro Bike. Eventually you do get both though, and the absurd requirements for some of the legendaries. I'm not talking about ones where you have to have a certain item or Pokemon in your team. To catch Reshiram or Zekrom, you have to have a level 100 Pokemon on your team. The highest level one can possibly go. That was Sylveon, by the way, for my teams. And to catch the Swords of Justice, you have to have 3 Pokemon on your team with max effort values, essentially meaning their base stats are as high as they possibly can be at their current level. These were the second Pokemon games I ever played, so I struggled to obtain those things. Still though, Oras are my favorite Pokemon games of choice to replay when I'm in the Poke mood, despite people not appreciating the water graphics or something. 8 out of 10. Now, I would normally conclude this video by telling you to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, which you should still totally do, by the way, before giving a preview for next week's review. But I'm torn on what next week's review is going to be. On one hand, logic would dictate I move on to Generation 4, while on the other, the Gen 4 remakes are coming out later this year, and there's a newly released game that I could put in that slot instead, while holding off on Gen 4 until the remakes come out. But until then, this is your captain speaking, and next time I'll have made up my mind for what I want to do. I hope to see you there.